What's up everyone, it's Endymion, and do I have some crazy information for you today. There is so much happening due to GDC kicking off officially right now for the next week. GDC, in case you don't know, is the Game Developers Conference where devs from all over the gaming industry assemble. They network, show their games off, and have talks with other devs and industry individuals. It's mostly a net positive for the game industry. And I say mostly because there's some pretty wild stories coming out of it. From videos of woke devs screaming in protest of the Sweet Baby backlash, like I'm not kidding, you'll see what I mean. Some very eyebrow-raising conferences happening as we speak, and a journalist yet again lying about what's happening. And somehow making it seem like Cobrutus Rambo is somehow holding games hostage. But before we dive into any of that, there's an even more insane story that I want to start with. So as we know, Cobrutus Rambo made a Steam Curator tool which filters which games Sweet Baby Inc. or SBI for short has worked on. And as games are announced, we are finding out if they are too involved with SBI or not. Recently, of course, we had Unknown 9 Awakening, which has been confirmed to be overseen by both founders of SBI, so that game is absolutely cooked. Another game has been revealed as well, called Flintlock: The Siege of Dawn, which when it was originally announced, it looked like a game that was up my alley. Typical third-person action game, may not set the world on fire, but should be a fun 30-hour adventure. We've all played a game or two like this. They're probably going to be solid 7 out of 10 experiences, but they're still fun to play anyway. This game apparently has SBI involved, but before you say, well, that game is finished too, it actually gets far more interesting. So, according to Cobrutus Rambo, the same guy who made the tool that started all of this craziness, he was reached out via DMs by a developer who was working on Flintlock. And what this dev, who's obviously unnamed, said was crazy. Cobrutus then tweeted this: I added another game to my curator list. The game is called Flintlock: The Siege of Dawn. And as shown in this physical copy of the Edge magazine, it involves Kim Belair, Sweet Baby Inc. CEO. I have waited a bit before deciding to add this one because a dev from Flintlock's team reached out to me through my mail, stating that they eradicated the SBI part and basically remade it completely. At this point, together with my staff, I have decided to give them the chance to prove this, allowing us access to the game pre-release and asking their manager to have a conversation with me. They openly refused on both points, leaving me without any way to confirm what they were telling to us. This doesn't speak very well about them. So yeah, new game is on the list. And in terms of that info confirming SBI involvement, here we can see that Kim Belair, the co-founder of SBI, is indeed confirmed to be involved with Flintlock. And her story, DNA, and influence is allegedly already within the game. But like Cobrutus said, this dev reached out and told Cobrutus they have eradicated anything SBI has done over the last 2 years of development. Cobrutus said he reached out and they went radio silent. So maybe the dev is lying and attempting to save face. That could be one thing. The other could be that the dev in question, who's anonymous obviously, wasn't authorized to say anything about this to anyone. So when Cobrutus reached out to their management, of course the management of Flintlock likely wasn't aware of which dev said this. And if that dev was discovered, well, they would likely be terminated, especially if the dev is lying and the game is indeed SBI nonsense 100%. But this story doesn't end there, and it gets even more crazier than that. We now come to Grumps, who has been a big voice in this battle against SBI in the heart of video games. He was the original lead on World of Warcraft and produced many of Blizzard's best games in their golden era. So if you love WoW, StarCraft, or Diablo, Grumps was directly involved heavily with all of those back in the day. Anyway, he got a DM from a source that also worked or still works at the studio that's making Flintlock: The Siege of Dawn. And this story, like I said, gets wild, so let's mosey over and look through all the juicy bits. I love this sort of stuff, fellas. Let's dive in. Alright, Grum's source said, I used to work there. Flintlock was a good project with lots of potential, then it was ruined. Did you know the protagonist of Flintlock used to be white? When COO and casting director Audria Topps-Harjo joined the studio, her first actions were to change the character to hire Sweet Baby Inc. and to change the main character to a person of color. This marked the beginnings of the problems with the game and studio. Audria Topps-Harjo is rumored to have used the company's funds and manpower to power her personal agenda and projects, on initiatives not related to the game or even the studio itself. One such initiative that I found is Inclusion FX, a VFX company and advocacy company with shades of Sweet Baby Inc. Here is the bio from the company. She held this position at Flintlock at the same time she ran Inclusion FX. I asked and confirmed, yeah, I have witnessed our UI artists making art assets for its website as their sprint tasks. So, let's hit the brakes for a second here because obviously context is needed. Who the hell is Audria and what is this about Inclusion VFX? Well, let's look into that further now as well. Audria seems to be an executive who has worked in special effects within the games and movie industry for a long time, over 30 years in fact. She apparently founded her own company called Inclusion VFX, which if we look deeper into that now, we can see more. Their statement says, Inclusion FX is a platform designed to support and amplify underrepresented voices in the VFX for features, television, and games industries. Our goal is to give the next generation access to role models by sharing the hero's journey of a diverse range of professionals. Our team are largely uniquely positioned to unite the voices of giants in the VFX and games industries and present their perspectives as a united group of heroes the next generation can look up to. This will be achieved by broadcasting an ongoing series of panels that anyone can access. Every 3 months, we invite individuals from traditionally underrepresented backgrounds, from all aspects of visual effects, animation, and game development to impart their wisdom, survival skills, and hero's journey via the IF online channels. So Audria basically has created the sweet baby version of special effects within her industry is what this is looking like. And the entire mission of this company is to champion and elevate the voices and careers of people of color within that industry. Which may sound noble, but it's pretty weird if you ask me that you exclude other people from your company based not on their merit or talent, but their skin color. But then again, this is why so much content across not just games but everything has diluted in quality. Not because people of color are more prominent, but because they're just hiring people who clearly don't have the experience or talent as a requirement first. I could care less what color or gender an artist or VFX person is that's working on something that I'm playing or enjoying, as long as they're good at what they do and their work doesn't sour or make the experience worse. But if you tell me I have to buy these products or you label me a racist, well, then we're gonna have a problem obviously. So now that we know this, it gets even crazier, so let's continue further. So now we are going to learn how Audria basically turned Flintlock's development studio, which is called A44, into a hellscape of diversity, equity, and index nightmares. I figure I just say straight up what Grum says here, and I quote, "Aside from working with Sweet Baby Inc. and making changes to the game, Audria also directed numerous changes in HR in her role as Chief Operating Officer. In 2021, most developers were denied raises and evaluations were postponed for at least 6 months. Audria told HR to inform anyone who complained or asked questions that the reason is because I said so. She also ordered the HR department to hide the salaries of the top executives of the company. HR tried to help, but were unable to get past this. The team was worried about the studio finances. Meanwhile, the new hires and changes to the game resulted in a project where these people know nothing about how a video game is made. After nearly 2 years of these DEI changes at A44, the damage had been done. At this point, the studio was purchased for $175 million, an unusually high sum for a small studio by the way, by Kepler Interactive in September of 2021, a gaming collecting fund whose founder also founded the Kowloon Knights Gaming Fund. It was at this point that Audria, the chief operating officer, left the company. Perhaps this was the start of a cleanup of the game's troubles. The state of the game is unknown at this time, but it is believed to be in shambles after this 2-year round of DEI changes. As we now know, A44 reached out to Cobrutus to refute SBI's involvement, saying they are no longer involved and all their changes reversed. But when Cobrutus asked for proof, they refused to speak to him any further." End quote. So what we have here, again, this is not confirmed, but it is interesting that both Cobrutus and Grums had different sources reaching out to them that have worked on this Flintlock game. So as of now, I'll consider this real, but again, we don't know 100%, but everything here is painting a really dire picture. But we can confirm, as seen here on Audria's LinkedIn, that she has indeed worked at A44 for 2 years and 5 months. And she allegedly was able to strong-arm her VFX company into working directly with A44 Studio and their work that is in Flintlock: The Siege of Dawn. However, let's just say for the sake of it that if these changes were reversed in the last 2 years, I think A44 is in a unique position here to really boost their sales and goodwill. If it is true that they rejected SBI and Audria's involvement and have retroactively removed all of their involvement with the game, Flintlock could become a Steam top seller overnight if A44 just came forward and confirmed this themselves. Sure, they would likely get attacked by SBI cohorts, and gaming journalism websites would probably complain in some hit pieces, but A44 could theoretically weather these storms and win the resounding support of millions of players worldwide for pushing back against the woke insanity of the games industry if they did this. Seriously, if anyone from A44 is watching this, please reach out to me either via Twitter DMs or email, which is in the description below. You guys don't realize how much of a win your game could become if you do confirm and prove that you've rejected SBI's involvement like this. This simple decision could save your entire studio and company and turn your game into a global success overnight. I think refusing to not speak on this will just be a waste of a massive opportunity on their part. Unless, of course, these changes have not been reversed, which if true, then the rot of Sweet Baby has successfully destroyed yet another game. And A44 as a studio and Flintlock will just fall into the abyss and they will lose millions and probably close down. So it's really up to them, but if I had to think of any reason why they don't speak out, it's simply because they're afraid of the woke weirdos in their industry who are strangling everyone with their insanity. So, like I said before, GDC is currently happening, and this next story is just ridiculous, dude. You actually need to see it to believe it. This article comes from IGN and it's titled, "At the Game Developers Conference, the game industry really needed a good scream. Over 50 developers met today for a coordinated group scream to lament the state of the industry." Yeah, this is not an Always Sunny in Philadelphia skit or something, this is a real thing that happened. And it gets even more stupid because over on Twitter we have Mangalawyer who actually has footage of this group scream, so I guess let's watch it. Here's the clip. I really don't know what to say right now, but yeah, that's a thing that unironically happened at GDC recently. I think it's hilarious that they only managed to get around 50 devs to actually join in their little pity party scream, and the other thousands of devs were like, nah, we're good. Which kind of leads me to believe that what we're fighting against is not the majority of the games industry, but instead it's a small but very vocal and influential group of people who are kind of just holding the modern games industry hostage with their lunacy. These are the sorts of people you have to tiptoe your opinions around and endure, because if you don't, they'll run to human resources and get you fired because the 7 other personalities they house in their heads told them that you're a racist. I can only imagine it's a nightmare working with these people. It would be like being put in a cage with a chimpanzee that just took a line of white dust off a toilet seat. You kind of just stay in your corner and pray the chimp or woke dev doesn't go berserk and rips you to pieces. But I think because these groups are small, it infuriates me due to how much control they have. And it's because they're small, that's why you have nonsense like inclusion VFX being a thing. Because these companies like that one or SBI, it's all about slowly over time ensuring more people who think and act like these groups become more prevalent. Until eventually, they're not the minority, they actually end up becoming the majority. What was it that the co-founder of SBI said that one time?
Work very hard to get marginalized talent into the industry, to protect them the way that we would want to have been protected, to lift them up, and to get them into an industry where they're too often shut out. And basically, I think to take over in the hopes that some really dope people will be able to lead into kind of a new era for an industry that's been kind of, the same way too long.
It's not about making games better for the players, it's about taking over and turning an industry into a wasteland of terrible products riddled with horrible messaging. And clearly it's not working, so we have to stay vigilant. Especially considering at GDC there's a ton of conferences being held all about diversity, equity, and inclusion. And suspiciously, some of these even have individuals in leading roles here that work for places like Take This. In case you forgot, Take This is that organization that is a branch of Homeland Security. So they can spy on players and make things like bans more prevalent if you have wrongthink. So they don't just want you to accept their woke video games, they also want to make you accept their ideology, or they can in time rob you of your libraries of digital games or your accounts. Truly insane stuff, and everyone needs to push back against these ideas. Otherwise, video games will get destroyed by all of this insanity, and when it's not DEI weirdos pushing VFX companies or ruining games, you have the journalists too, who can't seem to stop lying and pushing fake talking points to reinforce their positions. From Bounding into Comics, we have this article titled Kotaku editor Alyssa Mercanti lies about Sweet Baby Inc. backlash during CBC radio appearance. Claimed Steam curator list was made to prevent people from buying and playing these games. Alyssa Mercanti was on a CBC or Canadian Broadcast Corporation podcast called The Current with Matt Galloway. I would like to use audio from the podcast, but it's very likely that if I do, the CBC will copyright strike this video. But that's okay, since Bounding into Comics was able to get a full transcript of the conversation and everything, so I'll still get you the full context anyway. Alyssa Mercanti, the Kotaku journalist who wrote that hit piece a week ago, said this via Matt Galloway's podcast. Someone at Sweet Baby noticed that this account was made on Steam and noticed how it was gaining traction and noticed that it was intended to prevent people from buying and playing these games, and requested that it be taken down for organized harassment, and that kicked off even more organization from them, the people who made the Steam group. What she just said here is a flat out lie again, like, dude, why do these journalists keep lying like this? Alyssa makes it out to seem like this Steam curator tool not only compiles a list of SBI games, but according to her, this somehow locks these games from purchase too. That's not at all what the tool does, but Alyssa is hoping enough people listening to this guy's CBC podcast are uninformed and will take this as gospel. The Steam Curator tool, actually, all the Steam Curator tools on Steam, none of these are capable of locking content away from being purchased. Like, how can she say that with a straight face? You know how much chaos would ensue if random Steam users were given the ability to lock video games from being purchased? Dude, every big game would be locked for a little trolling by thousands of people if this was possible. This is why I have to keep making these videos, because these journalists keep lying out of their teeth. The tool just puts the games on a list with their involvement with SBI, and that's it. She's acting like her Brutus Rambo somehow has the power to control the background admin functions on video games or something. Kabrutus does not have the power of Gabe Newell when it comes to Steam, even though in this lady's eyes, Kabrutus is basically the Antichrist now. It's ridiculous. And it's pathetic, but on brand for the CBC to not actually interview anyone who actually could tell the truth when it comes to this story. They could have interviewed Kabrutus, or Grums, hell even me for crying out loud, but you went with the Kotaku writer that lied in their article, and then doubles down further on your podcast. It really is one big club, and we're not invited, isn't it? Just lies and propaganda from all angles, hoping it's enough to silence you and keep you confused long enough until more policies get changed. Of course, there's even more nonsense going on as well. From IGN, we have this article titled IGDA Deeply Concerned About Increased Harassment of Marginalized Game Devs in New Statement. Game Developers Association issues statement urging developers to protect communities within games. The IDGA, or International Game Developers Association, has issued a statement calling for the end of what is being deemed Gamergate 2 and the whole SBI backlash. As IGN's article states in its opening, with the Game Developers Conference underway in San Francisco, the International Games Developer Association has issued a statement saying that it is deeply concerned over increased harassment of historically marginalized developers and those advancing diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives, or DEI. These concerns stem from similar harassment campaigns experienced during the Gamergate period in the mid-2010s, the group wrote. Harassment has no place in games or the games industry, and we must create a safe, welcoming, and equitable environment for everyone. The IDGA then goes full-blown virtue signaling damage control, where they say, and I quote, "For too long, misogyny, bigotry, and intolerance of diversity have inflicted irreparable harm on individuals and communities within the gaming world. The IGDA condemns the harassment campaigns that emerged from Gamergate and will not tolerate any further hateful rhetoric within our industry. It is imperative we take decisive action to eradicate harassment in all its manifestations. We call upon all leaders at game studios and companies, especially those with greater access to resources and influential platforms, to unite in a firm stance against harassment in our commitment to building a better future for the games community." End quote. Yet again, like Kotaku or The Verge, the IDGA also refuses to admit that none of this would have happened if one of their own didn't attack Kabrutus to begin with. This is not the players' fault that this is happening, their own people started this. And with this statement, they are saying that anyone who backs Gamergate 2 and the conversation surrounding it, like yours truly, is destroying gaming. So it's not the woke weirdos who are deliberately pushing their politics into video games and ruining everything we love that are to blame. No, of course not. It's my fault and others who do similar work because we keep them accountable. Yeah, that's not going to happen. We are not responsible for this happening to begin with. It was your own people who did this. And they can paint the picture however they want, the genie is out of the bottle already, and there's no going back. The games industry will not cause the Steam Curator tool to be removed, and you know what? Even if they do manage to get Kerberos' tool taken down, that would actually just make it even worse for them. Because tons of users will just make copycat Curator tools as well, and sure, Steam could then be forced to delete or ban those tools as well, but that won't solve anything either, because players will just make websites that compile lists anyways. And what are you going to do then? DDoS the websites? Go ahead, you'll just Streisand effect this sucker and make another 10 websites appear in response. The best thing they could have done is stop and remove these practices, but we know they won't. So they can get as many fancy organizations as they want with all kinds of different names, motives, or initiatives, none of it will change anything. This will only stop when these companies cease all operations that include things that players keep rejecting. We're not saying you can't have diversity, but can we get these games to not talk down to their audiences? To not ruin their experiences with nonsense like in Suicide Squad? We want respect in our games. We want every character, yes, that also includes white male characters, to be treated with the same level of respect these devs would give a person of color. Stop sidelining and destroying male characters, stop pushing infinite pronouns in our face, and stop ruining everything we love with your woke lunacy. If you need an example of a game that adheres to this, look at the Dark Souls games. We just want fun games that are worth the time and money and don't attack us. If that's too much to ask for, especially in a recession no less, well, then we can't save you, and we have no moral duty to help you either. Respect is earned, of course, and it's clear many of these people who are pushing these do not respect the audience. So continue doing what you're doing, keep yelling into the open air with your colleagues for brownie points, or opening up more consulting studios that are actively working to ruin games. All of this is within your rights to do so, but also remember it is within the right of the consumer to not support you either. And finally, to end this video, we have the story that just happened where Kotaku's editor-in-chief has resigned from the site in protest of the site's higher-ups pushing for a new vision. Apparently, Kotaku's higher-ups want to shift the site from news to video game guides. And the current editor-in-chief, or I guess former since they just quit, has gone scorched earth in response. Here's what Jen Glennon, the former EIC, said. After careful consideration, I have concluded that the current management structure and decision-making processes at GO Media are not aligned with my values and goals for Kotaku. Glennon wrote in her letter of resignation, which was addressed to GO Media executives Jim Spanfeller and Leah Goldman. I firmly believe that the decision to invert Kotaku's editorial strategy to deprioritize news in favor of guides is fundamentally misguided given the current infrastructure of the site. This decision is directly contradicted by months of traffic data and shows an astonishing disregard for the livelihoods of the remaining writers and editors who work here. I've resigned from Kotaku and Jim Spanfeller is a herb. That last part, herb, it's like an insult saying you're lame basically. Anyway, clearly the higher-ups are seeing that Kotaku's crusade of woke has not resulted in financial gains. And they are quickly realizing if they want to run ads and save the site, they need stuff that keeps people coming back and engaging longer. Which isn't their stories, but actually game guides. It's also what IGN does a lot as well in order to build a lot of revenue. So of course this former editor-in-chief is leaving because Kotaku's supposed new direction is not what they want. Because they would have to actually play video games and make guides instead of complaining about white men and praising wokeness. It's pretty telling that they don't want to stick around when they have to actually play the things they are being paid to do. They just want to use the site as a soapbox to virtue signal and that's it. Kotaku is of course the internet's punching bag, and this is likely the higher-ups taking one last-ditched effort to save the site. But if I had to guess, Kotaku will be closed and dead within a year or two, and that's being generous. The name alone is enough to keep most people away from the website already, so even if they switch to guides, nothing short of a complete change will fix that website's revenue or reputation. Resigning is a stupid thing to do, but maybe Jen can go join the developers at GDC and scream into the sky or something if that helps? Otherwise, we have yet another website falling to ruin for attacking the users and pushing woke lunacy. Whatever, Kotaku sucks anyways. But as you can see from Flintlocked to the crazy CEO they had, the devs screaming IGN and other groups pushing to end Gamergate and so much more, man, this video had a lot of stuff in it. Now I'm sitting here naked on my couch realizing that I have to edit all of this. I need some coffee. Anyway, let me know what you think as always, like, subscribe, and share the video if you enjoyed it, and thanks to my patrons as always. Remember to subscribe to Kerberos Rambo's YouTube channel and have a wonderful day. I'll see you in the next one.